Hi, Cora Stack here. One of the things I mentioned there was a point I had about just what is it saying really about the engagement with democracy when so many people spoiled their vote in the last presidential election or decided not to turn up at all. Now, many of these people were not young voters. They were from all stratas and from all ages, as I understand it. Now, it would be very interesting to do, to examine, who those voters were, from what age groups did they come from, and why they didn't vote. I mean, that hasn't been done yet. That piece of research to examine, what were the reasons and even looking at the people that didn't turn out to vote, why they didn't. And I think that will give us a very good idea of the state of play with our modern democracy. So I'd like those statistics, and facts, and I haven't seen any research on that at all. So it's been quietly kind of, put behind the scenes. But I think there is a message there, and we should know what it is, and that requires a piece of very interesting research. So, democratic renewal, why this moment matters. And this sits with me because there's one particular person that comes on here and always, from the very beginning, makes a statement, what democracy. And, you can see from his contributions that there's a weariness, there, and there's a sense of hopelessness. And I'd say this person is reflecting what a lot of people feel, that this is not just an individual point. There's a collectiveness there in his point, which has struck me. What am I going to do about this? There's something in this, and I let me look at it and think about it. But it certainly it wasn't just one person representing one view. It was a collectiveness there, and a kind of a sense of hopelessness over the state of play. So based on this and other similar contributions here, let me put this forward here. Perhaps he could have the he could lead the new proposed party and take a bit of work off my shoulders. So over the past number of months, many people have reached out, public and privately, expressing a shared concern, including this individual and many other people on this network, particularly on my first video, one of the first ones I did, a sense that democracy still exists in name, but not always in lived experience. And we see that this is a pattern which is, not just unique to Ireland, but it's particularly profound now in Ireland. That accountability feels distant. That decision making feels closed. That ordinary citizens feel increasingly unheard. Today, I want to speak briefly about an idea that has grown out of these conversations and into what I'm calling the Democratic Renewal Alliance. And I like the renewal because the renewal kind of puts a focus on the particular grouping or party that it is required to examine its where it is and keep renewing itself. So there's a dynamism in the name of the political party if you were to form a new party, where it's required to examine itself and is it doing what it sets out to do. In other words, keep renewing itself in that way. So democratic renewal does not mean rejecting democracy. It means taking it seriously enough to repair it when it has weakened, so that it doesn't become static and does not, you have the Democratic Party, but I think if you had a renewal element in it, it would mean that we'll have to keep on, asking the questions: are we being accountable to the people that we represent or serve? So it gives that extra accountability kind of sense to the party. At its heart, a Democratic Renewal Alliance would be about restoring the connection between power and responsibility. It's about the rule of law applying equally to everyone. It's about transparency, accountability, and meaningful citizen voice, not as slogans, but as lived democratic standards. Now, I never in a million years thought I'd be suggesting this. So, this is not about ideology. It is not about left or right. It's about whether our democratic institutions are still serving the public interest and how we ensure they do. Like, it's really aligning with the Constitution. which is like, as I say, utopia when you read it. It's called an alliance because renewal requires broad engagement. People from different backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, united by a shared belief that democracy works best when it's open, accountable, and responsive. This is a conversation, not a finished product, and the quality of that conversation matters. Before I finish, I mean, this is just an idea now that's been going around in my mind following this outpouring of um, of frustration, I suppose, by one particular and a number of particular participants here who are, at the end of their tether saying, "There's no democracy. There's no democracy. What democracy?" And for me, and then it starts to say, well, I have to say, well, this person really, knows what they're talking about, and let's try and think of something to offer them for Christmas. I want to say something important. Over recent months, many people have contributed thoughtful, constructive, and deeply engaged perspective to this discussion here on this channel. Some have shared ideas, some have challenged assumptions, indeed they have, and they've challenged my position. And I think they've come on now in a recent video where I wasn't talking about the Burkes at all. I went on at random about the Burkes, at length about the Burkes. And really, they were, if they want to talk about the Burkes, go on the videos. Let's discuss the Burkes, but not on videos where the Burkes aren't discussed at all, and hammer me about, I'm really looking at the legal issues and how the Burkes were dealt with through the legal system and whether it was correct that this matter go to the courts before it went to arbitration. I would have preferred to see an arbitration system in place for the Burkes and the school and all of those involved to hammer out an agreement between them before, and if that failed, perhaps then the matter go to courts. That's how I'd like to see all disputes, but particularly these kind of disputes, rather than straight away going into very adversarial litigation, which only tends to entrench positions and escalate conflict, as I know myself. So this is my position, and I don't think that's unreasonable. So let's take the issue out of it, just the way it's handled is what I'm talking about. Some have simply listened and reflected, and everyone is entitled. Some just because it's a sensitive issue, and that's any likes, or don't have to say who your name is if you're, if you feel, in any way worried or anything. That's likes or I agree with you, but perhaps if you're in my position and you're kind of treated as regarded as a kind of a whistleblower, people might feel that, it's difficult to put their name even on your page because the fear, but don't be in fear at all, because there's nothing, I'm not a dangerous person, but there might be some very serious dangerous persons that think they're against me, but I think they'll calm down eventually. They'll realize that I'm not a danger. I'm a challenge, but not a danger. That level of, but these people need challenges to keep them in check. That's what they're there for. They're not there just to hide behind closed doors and do nothing. They need challenges, and they need, challenges that are reasonable, of a reasonable constitutional, questions to challenge them. And I'm looking at America now, and I'm seeing what's happening over there. And yes, Ireland certainly needs to start the ball rolling in terms of the roll back on democracy. I'm trying to figure out where it is and how it's happening, and that's involves a huge amount of work. And now I can see the role of the courts has a huge amount to do with sustaining democracy. Huge, absolutely huge. And then pulling back on not engaging in constitutional questions is absolutely having a huge effect on keeping democracy alive, but also the question of lailerkans, the huge numbers of them and the way they're treated, and they will not be given the amount of legal representation that they need to have equality of arms. So a new system or a new layer is needed, which I'm saying arbitration, trauma-informed arbitration is needed for most dispute resolution, and across everything really. But if we start with justice, it could move to other places. So I can't see it working any other way. seeing lay litigants going into court and losing their cases at the very end is only, seems to me, just making money out of the other side who are represented. It's like a game of making money, which the inevitable game is the lay litigant is going to lose, irrespective of how good the their arguments are. It's horrendous when you look at it that way. That level of constructive engagement is rare and it's deeply appreciated. So democratic renewal begins with how we speak to one another. So finally, I'm going off for the Christmas season to take time to reflect and recharge. I have other things to do. I want to thank everyone who has contributed in good faith and to the emerging conversation, to the many phone calls I've received, and to the your engagement, insight, and care for democratic values truly matter. Now, I'm very aware of people who are asking me to do videos on bullying and harassment in the workplace, and I have been thinking about that for a long time. It's something I've been writing about on LinkedIn for years, and so I'm aware of the huge harm bullying and harassment and gaslighting is doing in the workplace. So, and microaggressions it's now called. So I will examine that in due course. So I wish you and your families a very peaceful Christmas, and I look forward to continuing the discussion in the new year with renewed clarity and purpose. So that's where I'm coming from. And yeah, I'm very aware of the amount of bullying and harassment, and particularly in areas where I don't work in, but I do. I've read a lot of the papers, and they have, I've read them for a long time, and the same thing comes across: the epistemic injustice, moral injury, these sort of things have come across in these areas as well. So and that's all related to whistleblowing as well. So all those things are kind of somehow connected. So I will look at that in the new year. So between this and then, wishing you all the best for Christmas, and hope to see you in the new year. And let's hope that the future has better times ahead, and the courts will listen to what I'm saying. That they need to shake up. Because looking across the world, it does seem the courts are not doing enough to preserve democracy, and they are being paid not by the state but by you and me, which is the taxpayer.